Thank you so much. Hello all. Welcome to our book club, A Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So this is our week 3 together. So last week, I think we did chapter 4 and 5. No, chapter 3 and 4. So just a quick review of people who, anybody joined new. We are talking about the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, which is about a story about a distinguished lawyer. And he has a heart attack, and then he goes on a journey to India, to the mystical land, to find out the real truth. And then he sells off all his material possessions. So John is the one, his junior or intern would be narrating the story. So in chapter 2 and 3 and 4, like what we have learned is John sees the magical transformation of Julian. Like he realizes like how much he transferred. He used to look like he was in 70s, even though he's like in his 50s. He looked like he's in his 70s, but now he looks like he's in mid 30s. And then Julian starts narrating his story, like how he met the sages of Sivana, how his travel to India, where he met Yogi Krishnan, another lawyer from Delhi who thinks like, he wants to come out of that, like all the turmoil that, that busy life. And then he wants to like, he is the village caretaker of the temple. And then he tells him about the sages of Sivana. So Julian is on his way. He's determined to go meet the sages of Sivana, and like he wants to do that transformation. He wants to find the real truth and the happiness, how they're all living their lives. So he goes and meets this sage who takes him to the land of Sivana. Like he says like, okay, our friends will welcome you. And then he goes there. I think in last chapter, I did tell you all, like, it's a beautiful place where when Julian goes, he sees all these like people like living in silence, and they all seem to be very young, vitality, and they're like full, their faces, they didn't even have any wrinkles or white hair. They exude that happiness. So Julian really thinks like, how are these people living this kind of life? I really want to be like them. So then he starts narrating it to John, and he tells like how he became a spiritual student of those sages. So the person who brings him to the Sivana, Yogi Raman, he's actually the main leader for that sages. Like, he's the main member of the sages. So he says like, we are always like willing to share our knowledge, but you have to go share this in the West where you come from. So other people like who can benefit out of that will help them a lot. So then John gets really interested, but he also thinks like, is this all real? Like, how did this all change? And so the chapter 5 starts with a quote. It says, great dreamers' dreams are never fulfilled. They're always transcended. So transcended is, which means you go beyond. There is no analyzing at that point. Things automatically happen. We are in that flow state. So that is the quote that the chapter opens up with, the chapter 5. And John looks like, it's 8 p.m. He feels like he still has to go to prepare for the court for next day. But he's like very much fascinated by this magical transformation of Julian. He thinks like, how did this all happen? Because he knew how Julian was before and how he transformed. He saw it like in lively. So he saw it in live. So he's like, he really wonders like, how this happened. And also he thinks in his mind secretly, he wonders, is this going to really work for me also? Because John thinks like slowly after being in this law as a lawyer, he feels like, he's slowly losing his, he's becoming more rusty. He's losing his passion. Whatever he was like really passionate when he was young doesn't interest him anymore. So he sees that his life is also changing, because sometimes when we are like, in a career or like being a homemaker, we do things and we don't realize certain times, like we just do it unconsciously. We don't realize, okay, is this giving me true happiness or not? Because I have to do a job, we have doing a job. Not that like, earning money is very important, but at the same time, we shouldn't lose ourselves. So that is like, it makes John think about that. Like, am I losing myself in this process? And then he says like, he thinks maybe it's time for him to reinvent his destiny. He thinks like, maybe it's time for me to like, like Julian, I have to also try to like reinvent myself. So Julian continues with his story. He says, after he meets Yogi Raman and they give him a hut, and then he says his desire for knowledge. Julian is always like he's very good at what he did as a lawyer. So his desire for knowledge and his sharp intellect is obviously a very intelligent person. So both of them made him like a well-loved member of the community. Everybody really liked him because he was like open to all the changes. He started slowly embracing all the differences. He's becoming a part of that group. So everybody kept like liking Julian a lot. And as a mark of their affection, they even make him as an honorary member of their band. So Julian spent every time, with Yogi Raman most of the time. He wanted to learn from him more. He wanted to change his life. So the sage became more like a father to him. Like he would sit with him, hours together. And then he they both like sit in silence. They do meditation together, like walk in the nature, like in the forest. So he really enjoys the time with Yogi Raman a lot. And he also learned that, there are these twin disciplines. I'm sure like everybody, it would help in our lives too. The personal mastery and self-responsibility. So personal mastery means, this is how I understood when I read these two words. Personal mastery doesn't have to be like you have to be skilled in certain like a talent, like it can be music. Whatever you are doing, are you being better than yesterday? Am I being a better version of myself from yesterday to today? So that is the personal mastery that we have to. And we don't have to compare our life with somebody else or like, okay, this person, we don't have to do that. We have to compare ourselves from yesterday to today. Am I improving? Am I evolving? And then self-responsibility, like for our actions, words, and thoughts. So that's how I understood. Maybe like after like we are done, maybe you can share your thoughts too about this twin disciplines of personal mastery and self-responsibility, how you took it or how you understood. So, and then he thinks like that helped him a lot too. And Julian said when he started seeing his personal expansion after 3 weeks in Sivana. So we always say, right? Like sometimes I know meditation magic, they always do like a 21-day, they did like a 21-day challenge with Pyramid Valley too. So when you are doing or being in certain programs like, 21-day challenge or a 40-day challenge of meditation, that tries to help us to make these new habits that help in our inner growth. So he says he saw those changes after 3 weeks spending time in Sivana. He started noticing beauty in ordinary things. Sometimes you don't have to go to like this extravagant place to like it. Just sitting and observing the starry night. I know as kids, some of us, I think, back in India for sure, when going to grandparents' place, sleeping on the on the rooftop, like on the daba or like whatever you call in your language, you see the starry night, sleeping, and like there's no certain, that was all like fun times. And he started enjoying those things, even like a spider making a web. He started enjoying that too. And after applying, like he started seeing beauty in all little things. And there is this caption too. Maybe I don't know if any of you heard that. Ordinary people do extraordinary things. So when you start seeing and feeling that gratitude towards like little things in your life, that really helps our lives to be much more happier than what we are. So that's what I think Julian, he's trying to observe little things and then feel happy about it. And he, after applying the principles of the sages, he began to develop inner peace. He saw that inner transformation. He started slowly seeing changes in him. And his physical vitality, what we, the book explained, his physical vitality slowly started changing. No matter if we start to think having we all know, we think about 50 to 60,000 thoughts in a day. And so most of them are negative or repetitive. So when we are draining our energy by doing that, obviously it affects our physical health too, like the way we look. Some people, even though they are young, they look old. And some people, even though they're old, they look young. So it's all like, he saw that physical vitality, and then he also started seeing his spiritual strength started increasing slowly. He realized, what Julian realized is success outside is nothing without success within. So first we have to be successful within ourselves. Then the outside success automatically comes. So no matter like how successful we are in our career, or like, in our personal life, professional life, if we are not happy within, then that is not nothing, that does not have any value, right? So he realized that. He said success outside is nothing without success within. And he also like, learned the importance of like consistent care of body, mind, and soul, how important it is. So a lot of times, like, during education or something, or like we are always told like, okay, you need to maintain your body, you need to maintain your mind. Nobody told about mind. I think like about mostly about body, and mind we would say about, you need to study well, like, only like academically we were taught or trained in such a way. But how are we like training our mind? What kind of thoughts are we having? Are we having miraculous thoughts? Are we having positive thoughts? Are we having negative and disastrous thoughts? So the meditation again comes in place here, because when we start emptying our mind, then we can be aware of our thoughts and our actions and our words. So he realizes that, how the consistent care of these are very important. And also he says, if you want to do good to somebody, but if you don't feel good, then how are you going to do it? So if you want to help somebody, first you have to help yourself, right? You want to lift up yourself. And also talking about self-love, he says, we can't love others if you don't love yourself. So how do we know that we are loving ourselves? What are the things that we are doing to take care of our body, mind, and soul? So he tells, these are like some brief points that he mentions in this chapter, in chapter 5. So, and then John says, are we really like John in the mind? He still thinks like, is he really joking? Or like, because Julian is always like, famous for his like practical jokes. So John is like, is it real or is it really not? Is he still like making a joke out of it? And then he says that, and Julian says, John, I'm not lying. How do you tell your judge, like, when you're doing a court, when you're like arguing a case, how do you say it? And then he says, I show the evidence. So that you can see the evidence in my physical body, like how it transformed. So I did not really do anything. So the transformation happened with my inner work. So you can see that John knows that is the truth, but somehow his analytical mind is still skeptical about like, is it really true? He knows that it is truth, but still he wants to ask that question. So the next chapter is chapter 6, which is wisdom of personal change. And here, like, John actually, like, he wants to like leave because he's getting late for the like court next time. And Julian also says like, I think you have to go. It's too late right now. So I will see you tomorrow in your house. And then Julian leaves, and then John goes back to his home. And then the next day, John couldn't wait to like, meet Julian in the evening, because he wants to know what exactly happened in Sivana. How did all this transformation happen? He still wants to know more and implement it in his life to make a better change. So the next one is like, it starts with a quote again, a beautiful quote, chapter 6. I'm an artist of living. My work of art is my life. So if you are given a beautiful canvas and you are the one that you have to design, you have to put an art on the canvas, how many of us will have a clear vision of what to put on the canvas? So we have to be the artist of our own life, right? You have to be the architect of your life. So having that clarity mindset is very important. So this is a quote by Suzuki, and that is what the quote that opens up the book. True to this word, like, Julian, like, comes, sees John in the evening, and then he wears like a long red robe with the blue hood on it. And John for a second gets shocked by, like, he feels a little uncomfortable, like seeing his dress. And then he looks at him like, like alarmed. And then Julian says, like, what do you expect me to wear? Like Armani? Because if you remember in chapter 1, he's like, Julian is famous to wear like a $3,000 Armani suit because of how rich he was. So he like comes in like this red robe, and John feels that he couldn't take the drastic change. And then he says like, oh, you are expecting me to come in Armani? And then he thinks like Julian didn't forget his like sense of humor still. So he, and then they both like, sit and start having the conversation. And then Julian starts telling him the ancient techniques that the sages have told him about, like mind control and erasing the habit of worrying. Like I don't know how many of you have young kids or old kids or have kids or not, but habit of worry always like about ourselves or about our kids or spouses or family members. It always, right? It always like is back in our mind. It runs. So he also talks about that, how can we erase that habit of worry? And which is like a lot of us, like in the society, it's like making more complicated. And then he also talks about the wisdom that Yogi Raman shared with him. Then like, Julian and John, when they were talking, John is still in that mindset, like, is it all true? So then Julian silently, like they have like a teacup, like a cup and a saucer and some tea on the table. So Julian slowly, he starts putting tea into the cup. And the cup fills up to the brim, but still like he starts pouring it. So the cup starts obviously the tea starts overflowing into the saucer, and like, and then John is like, Julian, what are you doing? Like, can't you see it is like overflowing? No matter like how much you put in, it's not going to like go in anymore. It's already filled. And then he says like, I'm so sorry, John. I really respect you, but this is an example I want to give to you. So your mind is already filled with lot of things. So no matter if whatever I tell you, it's not going to receive, you're not going to receive it, because it's like completely, you're already filled with your ideas. The moment you empty your mind, that's when new information can go into your mind. So like, again, coming into that breath meditation, during breath meditation, when we are with breath, our mind gets automatically empty, right? So that emptying the mind is a very, very important process. That's when our mind can get the actual energy we need, actual flow state that we need. So he talks about like, you need to empty your mind. That's when you can start like learning new things. And John, like, he realizes like, okay, that makes sense. And then again, like he does that. So he also couldn't remember the latest time, like, John thinks like, oh yeah, I really lost all my whatever I did earlier. So I couldn't remember what is the last time I read a book, or like what is something I do for my own betterment. Because he's always like, his profession, family, and then he has to go play golf to satisfy the other members of his law firm. So he's always like into this like circle of friends or family, but he's not really like doing any things that help him. So always doing the same things with same peoples, but not seeing much of change in his life, right? So a lot of us, again, like, having that neuroplasticity or neurorigidity, doing the same things over and over again, it really does not bring a lot of change in our lives. So we need to realize, like, if we want changes in our life, we need to start doing things that are new to us. We need to step out of our comfort zone. I was sharing this one in another group that I volunteer with. I personally am not a huge fan of public speaking. I don't feel comfortable, but when I was asked the opportunity to do the book club, I'm like, I will do it, because when we start, I don't know if I'm like explaining the way you're all understanding, but this is a way for me to like grow myself, or an opportunity to come out of my comfort zone. So I think all of us have like whichever like flaws or like little things that we can do, so that we can slowly start to come out of our comfort zone. That will help us like grow in our lives. And So like, he also thinks like, his creativity has come down, and all his like vitality has come down. So John he keeps thinking about it. So all these years he, like, as a trial lawyer, he spent most of his time in his profession, but again, like just like Julian, he lost his vitality, and now he's slowly realizing it. So deep inside, he knows that Julian's transformation was genuine, but there were some lesson for him also. Like, he can still learn some lessons from Julian. And then Julian says, like, after like spending 1 month in Sages of, like with the Sages of Sivana, that 672 hours of inner work, he started investing time in himself. Usually we say, oh, I spend time with my kid, we don't spend, we invest time. That is a very, like, a switch of words that we need to think about. We need to start investing time in ourselves. Like, how much time am I doing something that that really makes me happy? If it's like classical singing or dancing or anything that you like to do, like art. So just like spending some time to do things that we really enjoy is always, the best investment that you can make. So you will experience changes within your body, mind, and soul that will always surprise you, like what the results are after that. And here he also tells about like a story that Yogi Raman one day, like, after a couple of weeks, Yogi Raman comes to Julian's hut and says he wants to share like a wisdom with him. And then he takes him and like he starts telling this fable, like a story. So now I want everybody, I'm going to read this from the book. I want everybody to close your eyes. It's not meditating, but we are going to okay. So I'm going to read this one from the book. Everybody, please close your eyes. This is the story that Yogi Raman tells Julian. You're sitting in the middle of a magnificent, lush green garden. This garden is filled with the most spectacular flowers you have ever seen. The environment is supremely tranquil and silent. Savor the sensual delights of this garden and feel as if you have all the time in the world to enjoy this natural oasis. As you look around, you see that at the center of this magical garden stands a towering red lighthouse, 6 stories high. Suddenly, the silence of the garden is disturbed by a loud creaking as the door at the base of the lighthouse opens. Out stumbles a 9-foot-tall, 900-pound Japanese sumo wrestler who casually wanders into the center of the garden. As the sumo wrestler starts to move around the garden, he finds a shiny gold stopwatch which someone had left behind many years earlier. He slips it on and falls to the ground with an enormous thud. The sumo wrestler is rendered unconscious and lies there, silent and still. Just when you think he has taken his last breath, the wrestler awakens, perhaps stirred by the fragrance of some fresh yellow roses blooming nearby. Energized, the wrestler jumps swiftly to his feet and intuitively looks to his left. He started at what he sees. Through the bushes at the very edge of the garden, he observes a long, winding path covered by millions of sparkling diamonds. Something seemed to instruct the wrestler to take the path, and to his credit, he does. This path leads him down the road of everlasting joy and eternal bliss. So this is the, you can open your eyes if you close them. And this is the story Yogi Raman tells Julian. He talks about the lighthouse. He talks about the sumo wrestler, stopwatch, diamonds, and yellow roses. So, and the sumo wrestler like has a pink wire cable like around his waist. So he's going to tell, after he tells the story, Julian feels a little disappointed because he thinks when Yogi Raman tells him that he's going to share a story, he thinks that as soon as he hears the story, he's going to like tear up, he gets emotional, but nothing happened like that. This like seemed to be like a simple fable. And Yogi Raman observes the disappointment. He says, there is a deeper meaning to this like fable that I've told you. And in the future chapters, he will be explaining about each one of them, like, you know, the magical garden and then the lighthouse, the sumo wrestler. So those are the parts that we will be seeing in the future chapters. So that's where I'm going to end this chapter 6. So if anybody have any questions or takeaways, sorry, my camera was not well, I guess I did not realize that. So if anybody have any questions or any takeaways, please share, unmute yourself and share. We have 2 more minutes for meditation. Did anybody feel like, whoever joined today new, did you read this book? If you read the book, can you type up in the chat yes or no? Okay. So this is your first session. Thank you. And did not read. So I was telling Swarupa earlier, like there is an audiobook in YouTube, if you can listen, and it would be an interactive conversation if everybody reads, and, you know, that will help with like greater conversations that we can have together. But any one takeaway that people want to share before we like move on to meditation? Blossom, good to see here.
Hey, Sridevi. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, 2 years almost, I think.
Blossom?
Huh? No, I didn't read the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Sandeep Bhatia ji. Yes, it is Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. That is the book that we were discussing. Okay, if anybody, if nobody has any questions, then Swarupa, if you want to turn on the music for meditation. Hello all, welcome to our book club, A Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So this is our week 3 together. So last week, I think we did chapter 4 and 5. Swarupa?
Slowly place your hands on eyes for 5 seconds. Count of 5, open your eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slowly open your eyes. Thank you, Masters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.